It's even though there's nobody there, I'll still record it. Okay, any other check-ins? ZS6 OPS standing by.
ZS6 OPS, ZS6 Sierra November Yankee. No traffic, just for a short time.
Okay, so now I wonder, Adrian, is your volume turned up? Because I did acknowledge you. Let's try again. ZS6 SNY, ZS6 OPS. Rory, am I still going out?
I just volume is down or what it's hardly taking looking for calling, but not sure what's happening. It's just on there. The reason why I was blocked by the other vehicle, there was another call on the other channel that blocked the receive of this channel.
All right, good stuff. That confirms our suspicion that you were there, but you weren't there. And of course, being a radio amateur, nobody's actually really there. Okay, good stuff, Adrian. No problem. Monitor if you choose, turn up the volume, or if you do fall asleep, not a hassle at all. A second last call for check-ins. ZS6 OPS standing by. Listen, just monitor Hotel 2 as well. I don't know if you can. Just let me know if you can, yeah. I'm going to try double broadcast quickly. Okay, last call for check-ins. Last call for check-ins. ZS6 OPS standing by. All right, so nothing else heard. Let's get started then with this week's weekly net, which is going to be broadcast in both the amateur vertiport repeater, Zoom, and also on Hotel 2. Those that are wishing to join this net using Zoom may do so now. Zoom is open. If you do not have the Zoom link, please contact me on WhatsApp 082-859-2684, and I'll send you a link with the greatest of pleasure. For the record, this is ZS6 OPS, and of course, it's time to say greetings to one and all and welcome to this week's net. Today is Sunday, 2nd April 2023, and the time is 19:05. We begin the weekly net with a radio amateur check-in on the vertiport repeater for 5 minutes before proceeding. This net is broadcast every Sunday evening starting at 1900 and is broadcast for the benefit of radio amateurs, disaster relief CERT volunteers, members of the general public, and other interested parties. ZS6 OPS returning. Everyone is welcome to participate using either amateur radio or Zoom, or both if you so choose. I would, however, like to remind all the amateur radio listeners who have not checked in that you do not need to be a member of any group or club to check in or use the repeater or any of the amateur radio bands. All that is required from you is that you have a valid amateur radio license issued by ICASA, which automatically grants you the right to use any of the amateur radio bands at any time. There is no need for you to ask for or be granted permission from anyone else in order to use the repeaters or amateur radio bands. I'd also like to encourage all listeners and participants to share the weekly net Zoom link with everyone they know throughout South Africa. Doing so will help us grow the weekly net and will contribute to disseminating information as far and wide as possible. All right, so ZS6OP is returning. It's now time to unpack the weekly COVID-19 figures. As reported in the past few weeks, many tracking sites have closed down, and true to that announcement, so has Johns Hopkins, as they are no longer providing any updates. South Africa is also not providing significant figures, and the latest figures that were published, dated the 25th of March, places us at 1,551 cases in the previous week. The week before that, it was sitting at 2,074. There's no official figures available now with regards to the total number of deaths for South Africa. Moving on to Mpox. For the benefit of those that are not aware, monkeypox has been officially renamed at least to Mpox. So Mpox has now been reported at 86,775 cases globally as at the 17th of March 2023, compared to the previous week's total of 86,601. This week it was an increase of 174 compared to the previous week's 210. Fortunately, South Africa has not reported any additional cases whatsoever. All right, ZS6OP is returning. Moving on. We are now going to have a look at measles, because measles has in actual fact become quite a problem with regards to the amount of cases that are being reported on a weekly basis. So following the current outbreak of measles, I'm now including these figures in the interest of public health. And as at the 25th of March 2023, South Africa has 809 reported cases of measles compared to the previous week's total of 800. So SA seems to be adding cases on a regular basis. There's no doubt about it. And unfortunately, the figures as they are being reported are in actual fact slightly skewed, because they keep adding previous week's figures. I think it's late reporting that's coming in, so it does skew the figures on a week-to-week basis. However, Limpopo is still reporting the highest number of cases, which is standing at 302 currently, compared to the previous week of 296, followed by the Northwest with 201 cases compared to 199 in the previous week. Gauteng this week, fortunately, only saw an increase of 1 from 128 and is now standing at 129 new cases. It is on the increase, but it's not as bad as what we have experienced previously. ZS6OP is returning. Now, moving on to general news. In essence, I need to again this week include the report of cholera. There's been an additional 4 cases of cholera being reported in Gauteng in particular. This is really becoming a concern, as these numbers are in actual fact increasing exponentially. I think we're sitting at 11, 12, somewhere around there. The figures are actually becoming extremely high. If you consider that cholera is something that we don't, in actual fact, have on a regular basis. So I must admit, I'm not 100% sure what the actual figure is standing out at the moment. I know that we did have 1 death, and I think it was 6 cases, so we could be at about 10, and 4 in 1 week is a bit of a problem. Now, the 4 that have been reported have all actually not had contact with other cholera patients. However, they were involved in baptisms that were taking place in the Yixkay River, and I think that during that process, a certain amount of water may have been swallowed. So when we start looking at our cholera cases, the cleaning of our vegetables before cooking them, definitely drinking clean water, potable water, not drinking from streams and rivers, will definitely help. So my advice to everybody is, especially with regards to our laborers who may very well be subjected to having to use water from these streams and rivers and that, to rather educate them on, even if they do need to take water, to boil it and, just prepare it that way, let it cool down before they actually do drink from that water as a whole. Okay, ZS6OPS returning. Now, just before I move into the closing, I believe that there's a report in the April 2023 Radio ZS where the special theme for World Amateur Radio Day 2023 has been announced. So I just briefly want to read this. The International Amateur Radio Union announces that human security for all, and I think it'll be codenamed HS4A, will be the theme of World Amateur Radio Day on the 18th of April 2023. So for the first time, the United Nations Trust Fund for Human Security and the World Academy of Art and Science are partnering with the IARU in a campaign to highlight the role that amateur radio plays in addressing the world's most pressing needs. ZS6OPS returning and continuing with the special theme for World Amateur Radio Day 2023. Human security measures, security at the individual level. First introduced by the UN in 1994, the concept identifies 7 interrelated dimensions of security that are essential to an individual's well-being. Now, I'd like to just elaborate on that last particular part of the sentence that says the concept identifies 7 interrelated dimensions of security that are essential to the individual's well-being. These 7 are listed as follows: economic, food, health, environmental, personal, community, and political. ZS6OPS returning. So having covered the 7 interrelated dimensions of security that are essential to an individual's well-being, I'd like to point out that 5 of those 7, namely food, health, environmental, personal, and community, are all basic fundamental principles that disaster relief cert is required to be involved in across the board. So even though this is a United Nations a document and initiative, as it has been rolled out to the amateur radio community for the, as a special theme for the World Amateur Radio Day, I actually would like to question whether or not the South African radio amateurs would in actual fact now perhaps come to an understanding that having Echolink notifications, etc., turned on, which in actual fact chase people away, is not actually going to be beneficial to, in actual fact, being able to comply with HS4A or be instrumental in providing human security for all. That's just a food of thought that I'd like to put in there. And of course, as I say, 6 or 5 of the 7, namely not economic, my apologies, food, health, environmental, personal, and community are all part and parcel of disaster relief cert. Okay, so on that note, let's move into the closing, and I'd like to say thank you to all those who did check in this week, as well as those who joined via Zoom, and I see Christelle is also there in the background, and I will add her as part of this week's check-in. However, as the COVID-19 pandemic is still ongoing and still infecting millions weekly, please remember to physically distance yourself and to wear a mask to protect others, especially the elderly who could lose their lives if infected with COVID-19. The mask is not to protect you, it's to protect them. So that being said, always remember that it is best to sanitize or wash your hands on a regular basis in any event. Now, let's see, are there any other late check-ins this week? There's 6 OPS standing by. Okay, nothing else heard. So on that note, for the week moving forward, ZS6 OPS returning. I want to say be safe, be prepared, and of course, be happy. This is ZS6 OPS now releasing the Rudderport repeater for general use. Cheers all. All right, so everybody just stand by for a minute. I will start with the check-ins in due course.